My claim is that our economic system is designed in such a way that it naturally leads to these problems. So economic inequality, exploitation by the big tech companies, loss of privacy, overconsumption of resources are all side effects of the way that our economic system is designed. And the issue is that this system prioritizes profit making and gain over societal values. It's not that it doesn't recognize the importance of equality and well-being, but it just puts it as a second priority. And we cannot really blame the entrepreneurs, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, for leading these companies, because essentially if you revisit our syllabi, they're just following our teaching. We talk about value creation and capture, how to create a successful company, and how to swim in the blue ocean. It just happens that these particular individuals follow this advice very well, and they just succeeded in accomplishing what we are teaching and preaching for. And so we can say we can complain about ourselves as educators, but again, we are just teaching them how to succeed with this system. The problem is the system. You can say that greed is human nature, but the issue is that this system allows greed to take over and be the leading factor. So in the words of Gordon Gekko from the movie Wall Street, if you remember, greed is good. That's the motto of our economy. People are admiring Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and other entrepreneurs for what they have accomplished in life. They are listening to whatever they tweet. So we cannot really blame these people for being successful in using the terms that this economic system gives to them. And it's very difficult to change this system because it is inherent to the DNA of this economic system. It's all about exploitation, how you can make a gain at the expense of someone else. So we've seen how government regulation, legislation is just too weak to deal with this. And the system is also not facilitating, encouraging the opposite trends of serving the stakeholder interest, enhancing sustainability. There are some policies, but it's not enough. And in fact, the system is self-reinforcing. So we see the concentration of wealth and concentration of power. And the idea here is that it's not about only value creation and capture, it's about value creation and capture at all costs. And the system has achieved that in a very effective way. So if I'm trying to understand what is the main source, the cause of this problem, it all starts with greed that leads to opportunistic behavior, which creates and reinforces these five problems that I mentioned. And this analysis is quite different from what you hear in the news. It goes back to human nature. But you wonder, okay, we had this human nature for thousands of years. What changed today? Why do we observe these problems today, not thousands of years ago? What changed is technology. Companies are now using advanced tools, machine learning, artificial intelligence, algorithms, to beat humans, to take off the shield that we naturally had. So these problems, these platforms are leveraging the big data, artificial intelligence, algorithms to translate everything into money. And by doing so, they are polluting the mind, the soil, and they are exploiting our cognitive weaknesses, which are more difficult to overcome. Entrepreneurs, the owners of these platform ecosystems, they are just following the rules of the system, even though they are misaligned with the unwritten rules of society. What we see is that these systems let machines take the lead and humans follow. So I've mentioned earlier the different efforts to deal with these problems, and the reason that they don't work is because usually they are trying to fix a symptom, not a problem, and one symptom and not the systemic problem. And there are inconsistencies between these different policies. For instance, if you want to advance GDPR to protect data privacy, then companies are using this in order not to share information and to reinforce their monopolistic position in the market, or if you are trying to enhance productivity and help employees to be more productive. This comes at the expense of overconsumption limits. So there is a problem here in trying to reconcile the different efforts, and many of these policies were never implemented. Some of them have side effects. I mentioned some of the rebound effects that have unintended, undesirable consequences. And in general, the main approach has been regulation, legislation, antitrust. This is a very ineffective approach. It's very slow, and corporations can easily overcome this hurdle. They are much nimbler, faster, and resourceful. This is why we see that the current solutions have been overall ineffective. And what we need most is a coordinated effort by consumers, mostly, because most of the focus has been on governments and corporations, but we left the consumers aside. But they also have responsibility, which at the moment is voluntary, but hasn't been realized. And most importantly, none of the solutions really try to deal with the real problem. If you accept my thesis, none of them really tries to deal with greed, because greed is like something that is a force of nature. This is human nature. The conclusion from this is that, unfortunately, the current economic system is not fixable. We started the idea of business administration and economics with the thought that organizations should serve society. We ended up with a situation where we have a society serving corporations.